Welcome to Reset 2020. It's great to have you here with us today. Today we are joined by Bernadette Black from Brave Foundation. Hi, Bernie.
Hello.
And here on your screen as well in a beautiful green top. I think everyone's got top envy there of your beautiful top, Leanne. It's gorgeous. Leanne Hart and Adam Blanch, both subject matter specialists from the X Factor Collective. Reset 2020 is made possible and made free for for anyone around Australia to access at this time, thanks to our partners at Equity Trustees. So welcome, team. Great to have you here on the show today. Now, Bernie, thank you for coming on the Reset 2020 series. Before we get into a whole bunch of questions that we're busting to ask you, the Brave Village is built on a really unique model of virtual and remote delivery, and it was one of the reasons why we were so excited to have you here today, so we can actually learn from some of the things that you've put in place to support your virtual and remote teams. But before we get into it, can you give everybody here today a bit of an overview of what the Brave Village is, who you're supporting and how remote are we actually talking with your community?
Absolutely, Julia. I'd love to do that. So Brave started because really it was my journey and my own story. So I had my son who's now 27 at 16. And so, yeah, it would be over 10 years ago now that I founded Brave Foundation, the 10-year overnight success it seems to be. But we're the only national organisation that supports teen parents specifically. And so I remembered thinking very early on, I looked for it myself about how I would be able to get help, how I would be able to get hope, and how I would be able to finish my education without having a driver's license. You know, a lot of issues at home for myself, but we certainly see that with the over 500 teen parents that we've assisted over the last year and a half. So we've been funded by the federal government for the last couple of years, and the largest program for expecting and parenting teens in the history of Australia, which is pretty exciting, and have a workforce of 21. So we have our team that work in Northern Territory, in Queensland, New South Wales, Victoria and Tasmania, and our head office is in Tasmania, and that's quite amazing that we can distribute such great help and hope to those most vulnerable all over our nation from this little island state. But going to your question of how remote will we go? For me, it was always something, you know, Brave Foundation started with me starting to share my story, really, and then I would have people wrote a book about my journey many years ago, and would have people that would contact me and ask where their student, their sister might be able to finish their education and get support. And so at that point, you know, I would actually ring. My first phone call was from Toowoomba, and I rang the hospital, I rang the school, and I worked out this virtual village for this young woman in that situation and her support people, and to be able to connect her to those opportunities that I think every Australian deserves as a human right of education, health and social wellbeing and economic wellbeing as well. So that's how it started. That directory of services, which was on an Excel spreadsheet, is now the largest internationally for expecting and parenting teams, and has over 800 providers on it, and we license that to the federal government. So it's quite extraordinary. But with our program, I said before, where we are in Australia on the Eastern Seaboard and in the Northern Territory, we run a program called Supporting Expecting and Parenting Teams, which is our intensive program. And our mentors are professional mentors, and they work with teenagers from their expecting stage whenever they will come to us, and it's voluntary. So it's just beautiful that they want to be able to reach out. We have to put a lot of work into finding where these young people are to their child's first or second year of age. And one example that I would love to share is our work in Arnhem Land. And I think it's very important. We have two incredible mentors in Northern Territory that work with a range of organisations up there and do fly into Arnhem Land. And my goodness, if you have a look at the, we do the risk register before they go, and it literally has, about crossing crop-infested waters, they have to take a charter flight. So it's so diverse. Our program is so different from the middle of the city in Melbourne to Arnhem Land. And what's really important, I think, with every young person that we help is listening to that community, listening to how we might be able to help strengthen that community with the bit that we know, what we've developed in helping that particular group of people in Australia. And so one of our core values is being innovative, and we will make a way where there is no way. If you are so remote and you call Brave or you message Brave and you want some help as an expecting or parenting team, then we will find a way. And that's been pretty amazing and successful. We do work. Well, sorry, Julia.
No, you're right. No, you're right. That's just fantastic. I'm just wondering if we can jump into the next part of the conversation, if that's all right, and pick up on some of those things you're going to say in this as well. Since COVID hit, you have your participants and you have your mentors. So you have this amazing team that can just be deployed and connect in with your participants, with the teen parents. And one of the things that you were able to share was that there's obviously been a big spike in the support required, 240% spike in the support that's required, which obviously is putting extra demands on your mentors. Can you talk us through what have you been doing and what do you tangibly do to support your mentors to meet this demand?
Yeah, absolutely. We are, because we've already developed, I guess we've practiced what the world needs for the last 2 years, because we have actually been delivering our service in a remote environment and where we can face to face. But like I said before, we make a way if there is no way. So if it's needed to be digital, it's been digital. But because we did see that spike, we went from 350 meetings to 940 in the month of April. And so that was huge and massive for our team. They're all going on their own journeys in COVID with their own families. And so something that was important for us was to have daily drop-ins. So at the very beginning, which was in April, when it was quite intense, we would all remember, we actually had daily drop-ins on Zoom, and they were for half an hour. But we actually had, and it was voluntary. So it wasn't something that you had to attend, but if you wanted to drop in, you could. All of our staff attended those, I think, for the first 10 days, because there was so much news coming to hand. And that was really, really important for us. We also purposefully looked at how we could support our team in ways. I'm really interested in being able to elevate people's strengths. And so take real notice of that. And in my one-on-ones with staff, able to say what I could see and what I think will be their strengths going through this time for themselves personally, but also for Brave as well. And so we did some unique things, like sent out a little trinket just, to show them how important they are in the Brave Village, a little Brave necklace during this time. And it was important that it was in this time. We did the same thing with our expecting and parenting team, sent a book to each participant. So, my hand got really sore after doing that, but to be able to bring some of that light in a time where it is quite difficult. It's also been really important for us to make sure that we're supporting our staff, yes, in drop-in centre, but also one-on-one. So we have a buddy system, which we've had since day one, Julia, and we've talked about that. And that's grown to be really led by staff now. So they are able to actually input how that works, and it's amazing. And so those buddy sessions happen each week too.
Can you tell us a little bit more about your buddy system? This was all set up pre-COVID, and as I understand it, you've been putting in place, like, how do you be, I love you say, how do we be the most connected remote village in Australia? And so you've naturally been putting in place a number of practices and measures that a lot of organisations now have to think about in terms of how do we stay connected? How do we do this virtually and remotely for an undefined period of time? The buddy system, can you take us back to a little bit around, the simplicity of how you've created that, but also share with us how that's actually evolved as well?
Absolutely. So when we came into the trial, we went from a staff load of 2.5 to 21 staff overnight. And so because we were all remote and in very different locations of Australia, we knew that for Brave's values to be able to shine through, but for our staff to be well supported, that we wanted to create a staff village around them as well. So we were really front-footed about that. So at the very beginning, it was pretty much as basic as a straw poll, where you would pick out a name and, oh, you know, Jenny got matched with Eva, or whatever it might have been. And so that was really brilliant, because it was something that we had found out with our workforce, and it didn't matter if, you know, what your role was. It's a buddy system. So it's quite different to having a direct report or you know, your one-on-ones of performance, anything like that. It's a buddy system, and it's hanging out together, being able to check in on each other and get to know each other a bit more. And we didn't have the opportunity to go and have a cup of tea or, you know, hang around the photocopier or anything like that. So we had to be really purposeful in that. So that's now something that the staff actually guide themselves every week. Usually that there is a social connection point, which will happen with more of the buddy systems as well. And so they will also drive that themselves, some of which we all will come to. We actually had one of our incredible staff members go, she was seconded to us for 2 years, and that finished. And we had an incredible celebration with her online. But this is something, it was during COVID. And we did all sorts of fun things. It's amazing. We've done Christmas, you know, secret Santas and have sent them out, our secret Santas, via post, and then open them up on Zoom together. It's quite amazing when you can look at how you can create, like I said, our aim was the most connected remote organisation in the world, a pretty bold vision. And I'm sure we still have a lot to do in that space. We also use Teams, and Teams is great because we can just have chats happening all the time, and it almost feels like you're in the room together. And I think that we can become face-to-face is always what we find is most important, because we can't see each other as a staff workforce. You do pick up, especially in those bigger meetings with your staff, or your staff meetings, which we have every month, and 21 are on board. You do pick up and look at people's body language. You become more intuitive in that, and I think that that's a great opportunity then for us to be able to pick up those conversations and check in afterwards.
Yeah, fantastic. Another one of the things that you put in place in this whole sort of remote and virtual world that you all live within is, and I love how important you've made celebrating the wins, regardless of how small they are, and that you have a town hall sort of strategy for that, or you use a town hall approach for when you want to sort of celebrate news and celebrate wins. Can you tell us a little bit about how you use that? What sort of wins do you celebrate, and what's the effect that has on the team?
Absolutely. We do call them town halls, and it was quite, you know, interesting at the very beginning. We actually had another staff member who was a similar age to me, and she thought it was literally at the town hall, and she was heading there, and that's okay, because this whole language of having a town hall on Zoom is actually quite different to what we've been used to before. And so we all physically come together at a town hall, and it's like coming to a town hall presentation if you would go with your local council in the actual town hall. And so it's an important announcement, it's an important celebration, or it's an important matter for the organisation as a whole. So there can be it's both ends of the spectrum there. And we have certainly used our town halls for those opportunities. I think what it does is when we put out and communicate we're going to have a town hall with our staff, it heightens an expectation. So they know already that it's going to be something that's important, and we always have 100% attendance. We recently, and I know that Sue's on the line here as well, we finished an incredible impact report, which we did with Sue Vittori. And so that was a massive celebration moment. The amount of work that went, you all know, the amount of work that goes into a 70-page beautiful story of your organisation is just epic. And it took, 21 of us, a whole lot of blood, sweat and tears to do that with the team, Sue, through X Factor. And so that was, it was incredible, but such an accomplishment. And so when that was actually produced, it was one of those opportunities to have a town hall environment and to present that report to the staff before anyone else ever saw it. You know, they were the first people that we wanted to make sure would see that. You know, another perspective of that is when we've had difficult times with funding and not knowing how things are going to be, especially in this environment, and being able to have those more serious conversations as well. So I think that the terming of what we call our meetings can really be helpful for our team.
Yeah, absolutely. And you said there that you get 100% attendance rate. In terms of the feedback that you get from the community and from the team, how does it make them feel having the town hall meetings with the team?
They feel really valued because they have the opportunity to have connection and communication from, usually it's for me, for CEO, or it could be management if it wasn't me. And there's also the opportunity to be able to have questions depending on what the type of town hall that it would be that you'd be having. So it's something that we have found to be very successful and we continue to do.
Yeah, right. Great. Just picking up on that sense of connection, and I'm going to just invite you, Adam, to just sort of reflect on this, that sense of connection. And we've heard the word a few times today already around belonging and how important belonging is. Adam, can you go into this a little bit for us? When we hear belongingness, we obviously all instinctively know that it's important. But during this time, we're really challenged by it, obviously. So what, from a psychologist perspective and a sort of forensic understanding, what's happening or what happens to a person or a team when that sense of belonging is removed?
I think, I mean, the whole world of psychology has been a little bit behind on this in terms of, you know, we've tended to treat mental health as if it was an individual thing. But over the last couple of decades, you know, mainly due to the work of Stephen Porges' polyvagal theory, we've had this kind of explosion of understanding that, you know, we're not separate kind of nervous systems. Like everybody knows about the kind of the arousal system and the rest system, but what we've been discovering is this kind of third nervous system in people, which is called the vagal system. And it's really there to, so that we can co-regulate, you know, so that, you know, if one human being is in distress, what we instinctively do is look for another human being who isn't. So it's a bit like kind of pouring cold water into hot water. If we're all too hot, we look for somebody who isn't. And what we do as a social species is that we co-regulate with each other. You know, when a child's in distress, it naturally goes to a parent to kind of go, or an adult to go, hey, I don't know what to do with this. You look like you're a bit calmer than me. Maybe you could help me with this one. So there's this very direct interaction that happens between people that if I come into the presence of somebody who's distressed, then my arousal system naturally kicks in an empathic way. So my levels come up, and their system kicks in and it comes down. So, and you know, we see this in organizations when the stress is on, we naturally look to the leader and we're really hoping that the leader looks like they've got their stuff together right now because nobody else does. If the leader's freaking out, then everybody freaks out. So there's this really important, the mental wellness is not just about the individual. It is about the community. It is about who you're connected with. And of course, what COVID's done is just disrupt that enormously, that in the moment, in presence with other people, interaction has reduced. And it's left people isolated, it's put them in distress. So that sense of belonging, I mean, there's other elements to it that we need to feel like we're valued in our group, that we make an important contribution to that group, and that, you know, as an individual, we are uniquely valued, but that sense of there is a group, and when I need it, that group will be there for me, and I can be there for them. That's also a really big part of human beings feeling good, is that I have the opportunity to be there for others.
Yeah, beautiful.
I mean, what, Bernie's model is just amazing. I'm glad you've done a report, because I was going to say, let's do a report and share it with everybody else, because
Yeah,
it's really the essence of wellness is
absolutely.
this community.
Thank you for sharing that. I want to jump into a couple of more things, Bernie, that and hopefully this is really helpful for you listening in here today live with us. And if you're watching this as a recording afterwards, hello and welcome to Reset 2020. Bernie, there's a couple of other things that you've put into your practices, and this is what I'm really keen and love about today, is that we can hear about these, because I think these are the types of things that people can go away with today, with some tips and from Leanne and Adam, and some of the things that you've been putting in place to, I guess, hold that fabric together of the community. One of the things that you picked up on earlier before, and I just wanted to go into, was, it's a small element, but I guess it's adding all of these up, which is the impact. And it was when you talked about sending out a small trinket in the post. Can you talk just a little bit to that? Because there's probably something in this over the next couple of months that might be something that others can take into their organisations.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we just wanted to do something that was lovely, something that actually, we're a real values-driven organisation. So anyone that joins Brave, they will actually share with the staff when they come in what value resonates most with them at Brave Foundation. And so even for me, in looking at sending out, those little necklaces during this time, I sat down, I took myself away from any, you get CVs of your staff and bios and that type of thing. And I took myself away from that, had a bit of a blue sky day, and just got a piece of paper and wrote down all of our staff members' names. And then actually just spent some time thinking about who they are and what I see in each of them. Just that. And it was quite incredible, because what we often see, we sometimes don't see ourselves, and particularly with hearing what Leanne and Adam were sharing about before, when we're heading into a time where we might be mad, sad, bad. I can't remember the other one, Adam. Glad. That's right. That you can almost forget, I've been there myself, who you are. You can almost forget the strength of what you bring to the group. And everyone is different, thank goodness. Everyone has different skills. Everyone has different strengths. And when we're sharing those times of real weakness, that we can actually bolster each other up with the strengths that we can see. And so, that's been incredible, because when I've been able to, we also have what we call skip level meetings. And I'm not sure if I should go into this now or not, Julia, but certainly in those meetings, being able to call out the strengths that you see, being able to, say, well, this is how I see you interact with the team, or this is how I see, our participants receive such great work from you, and it is different for each person. And so I think that intrinsic value of your team members, not just the role they do, but who they are in the greater world, is more important now than ever. And, can sometimes open up a conversation and provide, it's just someone being interested in who you are, isn't it? Like, actually, the CEO actually cares about who I am, not just the job. Yeah, you might be able to have an honest conversation from that when it's genuine.
Bernie, I'm going to talk a little bit more about skip level meetings in a minute. But I do want to come back to what you're just talking about, the strengths and reflecting back to people. And it's one of the things that I love about what you do and who you are as a human being is this very simple but beautiful notion of, and I think you were saying to me last week on the phone, people present themselves in their CVs with their strengths and who they see themselves to be. But the impact that we can have on people's sense of self and of well-being and identity through having it reflected back by somebody else at a time when people might not be expecting to receive that. Can you give us an example, without naming names, but can you give us an example of, a time when you've done that it's just really been what, that person in the team needed and has made a real difference? Yeah,
absolutely. Oh, for sure. I can remember in this period of time, it's been difficult for everyone, but with actually with one of, it's not one of my direct reports, but in a skip level meeting, being able to call out some of the things that I had seen in her and what that had brought to the team in this time. And it was really about just this strength of solidarity and not getting too flustered, but it's a part of who she is. You know, that could be, it's a part of who she is, which is so different. It's just this consistency and thoughtfulness that brought such strength to the team. And I was able to say to her, you know, what I see and I have seen continue during this time is this consistency and solidarity that you really show to everyone, and it really creates a safe place within Brave Foundation. And it was just amazing because this woman, she's quiet, she's more of an introvert. She had no idea the impact she had, and you know, being able to talk to, and she could see it in herself though. When you were actually bringing these words, she could see that in herself. She's like, no, that is what I do. That is how I behave in a professional environment. But to see that that's what we actually need and respond to as a team, and that it's who she is, it was pretty remarkable. So it was lovely to be able to have that conversation.
That's gorgeous. I'm going to bring in Leanne at this point in time. Leanne, you've worked across a number of teams, you know, as small as, you know, 3 or 4 or less, through to 3,000-4,000, you know, in large organisations. And I'm just wondering if you could pick up from your perspective on some of the things that Bernie has shared with us, some of these simple tactics and strategies that do go a very long way. And I guess your own observations as well around how that helps to create that really sort of high performing and supportive team environment.
Yeah, certainly can. So much of what Bernie was talking about resonates, and such beautiful examples of leadership, both in times of crisis and times of regular leadership. It's just, you've set a very high benchmark there, Bernie. A couple of things that I picked up on is the communication and how authentically you're communicating with the team. And that's really important. You know, through any sort of change, being able to talk about what you know and what you don't know. I think it's important with teams that we're pretty honest about that. What is the situation at the moment? You might be leading the team, but you don't necessarily have all the answers, and you're not in a position where you can predict what things are going to look like in 2 or 3 months' time. So staying honest about what that looks like, but communicate, and doing it regularly, doing it often, and doing it in a multiple variety of ways, informally, more formally, with town halls, using written communication, verbal communication, online, phone, whatever it takes, but keeping those lines of communication really open and accessible to everybody. That's been particularly successful from across any team that I've seen. Also providing clarity for people, clarity, and it might only be clarity around the tasks that they're working on at the time. So rather than, I see people get very overwhelmed during a lot of change, and it can be quite hard to focus on one thing without skipping from one thing to the next. Being able to provide that clarity around what's important, what to prioritise, but linking it back to how it fits into what the organisation is trying to do as a whole. And it sounds like Brave Foundation's got some amazing values and amazing purpose that everybody is very connected to. And at times like this, it's even more important to keep people connected to what you're ultimately trying to do. Staying positive about the possibilities. So it's not, COVID is very challenging for a lot of people, but it's not just doom and gloom. It doesn't have to be doom and gloom. So being that person that you might be the swan on the top of the water that is just gliding along with your feet madly paddling underneath, but still being able to provide some glimmer of what the future might look like, and the possibilities that this new way of working could open up for us. Some other things that I loved, and I thought you talked to beautifully, Bernie, was the sum of all the parts. And it's not just one thing that you do to help a team through a tough time. It's a little bit of everything. And it is the communication, it's the caring. The caring is super important. People want to know that you care much more than they want to know what you're doing or how well you're doing it. That's what they'll remember in 6 months' time when all this is over, is the care and the support that you've provided for them as a leader.
Yeah.
And the ritual that you talked about, sharing strengths, is another really beautiful one. And I've often approached it as asking everybody in the team to do that as a bit of a team activity together, and pick one thing that you appreciate about each of the other people in the room. Works particularly well with smaller teams, just to go around. You could do it on a weekly or a monthly basis, but what you might be, I appreciate this about you, Julia. And again, it's letting people see their strengths through other people's eyes, and a bit of positive reinforcement that there might be a lot of really challenging things happening at the moment, but there's still a lot of goodness there as well.
Absolutely. Beautiful. Thank you for that, Leanne. I'm just been looking at the live poll over here, and I want to pick up something, Bernie, you mentioned it before with the skip level meetings, and we'll come back to it now. In the live poll, a lot of people have said, we can't tell if our people are okay. And one of the things that I love about the skip level meeting, and I was just hoping you could speak to this, how the skip level meeting works within the organisation, if people haven't used this before, but also Bernie touching on that how you create that little bit of uncomfortable silence and the not rushing in part. If you can speak to that around how that allows for people to be able to share that they're not okay, just as a really simple, beautiful tactic today.
Yeah, absolutely, Julia. I'd love to. And so the skip level meeting we commenced towards the end of last year, actually, and it'd be something that I would, recommend anyone do, because it's been such a strength to our organisation. And so what it means is that you're actually, it's not your direct reports that you have your skip level meeting with, it would be the people that report to your direct reports. And the brilliance of it is that you can, for that, it is for that, for me, and also for the managers and executive team within Brave Foundation, is actually being able to care for your staff well and hear how they're going, and then being able to share that with who they actually report to directly with their permission, so that we can work out how we best can support that person. But in the uncomfortable silence that Julia just made a comment about, it's actually really important. So there are 3 questions that I will ask in my skip level meetings. And the first one will be, so how are things going? What's top of mind? And then waiting. And then if nothing's coming forward, or, it's no, nothing, everything's okay, it'll be, is there anything keeping you awake at night? And then waiting. And then often it might be, and what I would actually say it's important to do, when you start to feel that feeling, and you can probably even feel it now because I'm slowing down my voice, but that feeling when you have the silence and you want to feel it, but you go a bit past that feeling, a bit past that, so, 30 seconds or so, until you're feeling like, oh, this feels really uncomfortable. Often when you get to that point will be when I find the other person will start to talk.
Yeah.
And so it's hanging in that it's discomfort, it's actually caring, and it's actually intense listening, and being aware. And so that's the experience when you push, yourself just past that uncomfortable feeling of silence. It's the hanging around the photocopier. It's hanging around getting a coffee. It's that time when you're just standing near someone and you pick up that vibe and body language of, is anything okay here? And so I think it's very rare that people wouldn't speak about how things are going at that point. Then after that, I'll usually invite them to say, have you thought about how you might be able to help in this situation yourself, or have you got any ideas of a way forward? And then after that, again, is there anything else? Because often once you've said something once, then you started a conversation, and then how can I help you with those things? So it's three questions, but I think it's and then some of the goals that will come out of that, through things that we do need to care for our teams and staff, being able to say, you know, it's a different perspective, and hearing that, if I'd love to share this with your manager, and then we can look at how we can help you more in this, is a real window of opportunity moment, and hopefully helps that people feel very supported in that.
Yeah, beautiful. No, I love that. And hopefully that's helpful for you all here today, listening into that, around the, you know, combining some of the things that Adam and Leanne have said at the start of the show with some of the things that you're hearing from Bernie today, in terms of not being able to tell how, if people are okay. And I guess practicing that uncomfortable silence, maybe practicing that with somebody else before you try that, even practicing that with some family members, practicing that digitally and virtually as well. How do you actually, I could actually feel that in my stomach then before, Bernie. I could actually feel that sense of, we do that naturally, don't we, wanting to fill the space all the time. So, you know, maybe practicing with people to actually do that and give people that space to be able to really tell you what's going on for them. We're going to start to wrap up this time that we've had here with you, Bernie. I'm sure we could go on for hours more, and so many beautiful gems. But just to wrap up, Leanne, Adam, I just want to come back to you. Any sort of final observations and comments that you think are really pertinent here today that our audience can take away? Adam, I'll go to you first.
Okay. Just amazing, Bernie. To me, that's that what you're saying about the silence. I love that certainly in Australian Aboriginal culture and in a lot of Indigenous cultures around this world, there's this idea that a meeting takes as long as it takes. You know, there's no end point to a meeting. It's like we sit down, we allow the silence to be there until something comes into that silence, and we stay there until it's done. And it's that sort of allowing that. And certainly in the world of, you know, part of being a therapist is really just being able to be with people in their pain without acting too quickly to try to resolve that pain. It's like that because people need the opportunity to be able to sit in their pain so they can start resolving it themselves. So it sounds like a great system you have. Thank you.
Beautiful. And Leanne?
I found that I can use that silence quite effectively in meetings and workshops, either virtually or over the phone, in a similar way, but as an open-ended question, like, what else? And when you ask what else, people usually take the opportunity to think about, and if they give you an answer, say, what else? And it just opens it up and keeps that space open, rather than them just feeling uncomfortable with the silence. It's enough silence for people to feel comfortable to share, but not so much silence that it gets too awkward. And I have seen that work fairly effectively as well. So just something that I like anyway.
Beautiful. And I like what all of you have picked up on, in terms of that it's not then about jumping in with the solution, but actually, Bernie, you said it before, was, well, what do you see is possible here for yourself? And allowing that, and this I think speaks to some of the other questions and comments that we've seen around people talking about anxiety and all the things that are happening for people, is, I guess, giving people a sense of that they can actually have a solution for themselves when they're in that space, and then you can come into that space if they want you to. Just to wrap up here, Bernie, what would be your sort of final tips if you had, you know, other organisation leaders coming to you today going, you know, we're really struggling. Have you got any other gems other than everything that you've shared here today around, you know, identifying and supporting team members who might be struggling at the moment?
Yeah, I think the only other thing that I would say is know your team. You know the people that you work with. It's something, again, when you have the opportunity to breathe with someone, to hang in that uncomfortable, the silence, invite how do you think you might be able to overcome that, or what steps do you have, and then how could I help? But also, if you know your team and you know your people and you know that someone loves Kung Fu and that they haven't been able to do that for 2 months because of social isolation, what are they doing? If they're out, 5 nights, 7 nights a week playing netball, what are they doing to be able to keep that part of who they are alive in a different way? There could be a myriad of different things. I think knowing your people is really, really important.
Yeah, beautiful. Excellent. Well, Bernie, thank you so much for being here today. Thank you for taking us behind the scenes and under the hood with Brave Foundation, all the things that you've been putting in place to be this most connected remote village. Did I get that right? Most connected remote village in the world. We love your vision. We love that you've created that and that you're able to share that. And we're so excited to be able to share this recording here afterwards for many, many more hundreds of organisations to be able to listen in and hear some of these great things that you've put in place. So thank you so much. If everyone can just help me give Bernie a virtual round of applause. And I'm just going to pop you off to the side there, Bernie, and look forward to hopefully having you back on the show. I know we touched on a lot of other topics last week when we spoke, so I think we might be seeing you again, and that would be an absolute pleasure.
That would be lovely. Thanks so much.
Take care. All the best.
See ya.